Hello and welcome to Advisen's Cyber Risk Insights Conference. We here at CyberClan are delighted to be with you today to talk about supply chain and third-party risk because we all know that threat actors know no borders. Hi, I'm Erin Keating. I'm the Global Head of Marketing and host of Incidentally Programming for CyberClan. And I am excited to be joined today by our partner, Lex Keen. He is the CEO and founder of Secure Foundry, and our very own Chief Technology Officer, Larry Whiteside Jr. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Erin, for having us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we're here to talk today about supply chain and third-party risk. And in this world of connected businesses, we know that everybody has exposure from a cybersecurity perspective. If we just think about some of the major headlines we've heard in the news recently, and even as far back as 2013, and we go to further explore how those breaches happen, we start learning that not all of the breaches are happening at the company that is in the headlines. Let's take the Target breach, for instance. It's widely accepted now that that breach actually occurred with a third-party vendor who had access to the external billing systems with Target, and due to poor network segmentation, was able to allow the threat actor access to those POS networks. Additionally, a more recent example was Cornerstone Building Supply Company in Cary, North Carolina, was subjected to a ransomware attack which shut down all of its manufacturing, which of course then went up the supply chain and affected the building supply companies and even some consumers that were waiting at their home for home renovations or perhaps a general contractor in construction. So this just demonstrates the breadth and depth of how a breach anywhere along your supply chain can really impact your business. So I want to start with you, Lex, today first. We know at Secure Foundry, your goals and missions are to make sure that the supply chain is secure and that you're bringing critical technologies to the market. What can you tell our audience about securing their supply chain?
Well, securing the supply chain is the core purpose of our business, right? So we work primarily with the government and its close partners to ensure that a secure supply chain is in place, because we work with those highly critical technologies that are finding themselves into national level assets. And when I think of secure supply chain, there are four main things that really come to mind for me as I put together those pipelines for commercialization. One is the protection of intellectual property. Two is the protection against introducing high-risk components. A third one is making sure that we are in compliance with the executive orders and policies that are coming down the pipeline that are going to be enforced upon industries. And fourth, we really need to ensure that we're going to have that access to certain components that are necessary for those day-to-day operations and critical to the programs. And I think COVID really highlights the potential supply chain risks when we may not have direct access because we're competing with other countries and whatever else for those necessary devices or components.
Absolutely, very valuable. And I do think you're right that COVID-19 is showing all of us, regardless of cybersecurity, that the supply chain is absolutely impacted by events like this. Larry, I'd love to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about how companies should think about assessing their risk along their supply chain, specifically as it relates to cybersecurity, as well as how they can minimize that impact.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I like to use the analogy of bed bugs, right? You can do everything you can in your house to make sure it is pest free. But as soon as you let someone in that is infested, your home will become infested as well, right? And so think about that in the context of your supply chain vendors and your supply chain partners. You do everything you can to secure your internal environment and make sure that you've got all the controls and protections in place yourself. But when you're not assessing these third parties with which you're sharing data, with which you're allowing to have some aspect of access into your environment, if you aren't holding them accountable to similar or the same standards that you hold yourself accountable, you open yourself up to risk.
I think that's very true. And you and I talk about this a lot on our Incidentally in the News. There's been a huge rash of compliance issues that were through the industry around lead certification, for example, where the environment became very important. Lex, do you see that potentially as people realize the risk from a cybersecurity breach in the supply chain, that this is going to start being a big marker for companies that people are going to investigate when they're choosing you as a partner in their supply chain to be sure that you have a secure cybersecurity posture?
Absolutely. I think that's really how we're marketing ourselves to a lot of the government entities and primes that we work with, is that we can be that trusted partner where they can outsource that risk to us because we're doing the necessary due diligence to make sure those assurances are in place.
Absolutely. And I know, Larry, at CyberClan, this is what we're hoping to do, is to be able to be that partner to organizations. You do need to find how to assess your systems and how to minimize the impact in your supply chain. Gentlemen, we had 6 minutes to wrap up supply chain and third-party risk. I sincerely appreciate both of you being here today. I hope that our audience watching this will join us for extended programming on supply chain and third-party risk. And I hope to see Lex back to talk more about that with us in the future. But for now, we'll close it out for the Advisen Cyber Risk Insights Conference. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.